So today we will cover purpose and the importance of context of purpose. Imagine now if you had a movie and you go in and let's say there's a series of movies actually and you're watching maybe the third movie and you don't know, maybe you pop in like midway into the movie, something's happening, things are happening, and you're like, what's going on? And the characters referencing, you have no backstory, you have no context to the experience. Now imagine your life in that sense. You kind of we're here, and what are we doing, right? The world is moving quickly, and uh, some of you have maybe been here a bit longer, others not as long. And so, what is the context then of your life? Well, that you could say then is history, right? Where does your life fall in the context of history? The history that was presented is not totally encompassing of the greater history that's going to give you the correct context here. So, what am I really speaking to is that the Earth has gone through certain evolutionary phases that were much, much different than what is currently known as Earth. And so, your body in these senses would be different, and the faculties that you have as you know them would be much different, and the way that you perceived reality, the way that you interacted with reality would have been much different. And in fact, it is and was much different. This I present to you as a fact that is known through spiritual science and is very well articulated. So, the importance of the discussion today is to know that the Earth had gone through the Saturn phase, the Moon phase, or the Sun phase. Okay, so it's the Earth, Saturn, Sun, Moon, and now the Earth as we know it is in this phase, and there will be future phases that will exist. We're not going to go much detail into this, though a study of this would be very valuable for anyone truly yearning to know their role in the world and their purpose. Because without the proper context, you're going to be like that movie character not really knowing what's going on. This is something that's very well outlined in Rudolf Steiner's book titled "An Outline of Occult Sciences." The name has been depicted as being quite unfortunate in the sense of the context of the name is maybe given some poor nuance, and then so. What I'll just say with that is ignore the title and don't think it's some like weird abstract thing, but in fact, it is a presentation of very profound spiritual facts in a very methodical and well articulated way. And this brings up an important piece of the context and the purpose in that it is very common knowledge that how we do anything is how we do everything. So, in the work of psychology and therapy and stuff like this, if someone has a problem, or even in business, if there's a problem, it will show up in other areas because how they're approaching one circumstance is showing up in the other areas. It is very common in modern society for people to say things along the lines of, well, I've already seen this, I already know this. In the pursuit of true higher spiritual knowledge, this would be a great error in that it is a relationship and an opening up and an encompassing that will occur progressively through repetition, just like any earth plane in earth as we know it, right? If you want to practice an instrument, if you want to develop any skill or awareness, it comes through practice and repetition. Things are repeated and you develop. So, in the same way, in the spiritual context of things, as you approach these spiritual facts and begin to learn to develop your subtle sense organs of perception, as they're known, or different forms of clairvoyance and stuff like this, then you'll be able to perceive more accurately, more holistically of these facets. Now, there's a certain way to develop these intelligently, and there's many shortcut ways that are presented that would be ill-advised uh, in this regard. Now, with that being said, the point I wanted to bring up there as well is that we there's a large portion of the population who will adamantly reject spiritual facts. And this is because they have not developed the proper faculties or awareness within themselves to know a fact and from something that is not true. And these faculties can be developed and it involves discernment and repetition, like we said. So the challenge then becomes is if we reject something that is spiritual fact, then something of the earthly realm is also denied, in that these two realms are interwoven. If we deny facts as being facts, and then this will show up in other areas as we've described, which will lead to distortion and often leads to fantasies and illusions, which is not what we want to cultivate here. So, when we speak to spiritual facts, just to give an example, what am I really saying here? A spiritual fact is something that is observable as it is through the perception of many different people. And this is most clearly seen and measurable through the work of the French radiesthesists, who developed a system for measuring and testing bands, and they developed out 12 bands of color qualities that they could measure through their experiments. And these are like red, green, yellow, etc. There's the UV, ultraviolet, um, infrared, and so on. And so different bands were discovered in that way. Some of them are more unseen, if you will. And all of these bands had measurable effects and results that were consistent. And so one tester would get the exact same results as another tester, assuming they were using the uh, proper methods. And so that would be something that is a spiritual fact. So when we talk in regards to the context of earthly reality and our place in it, these are things that are reliable spiritual facts that you can actually go and observe clairvoyantly or otherwise if you have the developed enough faculties. Now, the important thing with that is actually in learning about them, you can begin to develop some of those same faculties. In that regard, I highly recommend studying that book from Rudolf Steiner. Now, with the works of Rudolf Steiner, it is pretty essential that we have a baseline. He's not a teacher that you can just kind of hop in haphazardly. And so, for this reason, that book is somewhat of a prerequisite, as well as his book, The Philosophy of Freedom, will give you another very useful glimpse into how he articulates and perceives. And the book Theosophy and Knowledge into Higher Worlds are both very valuable assets for you. And so yeah, in the context of like where do you exist in this sense? What is your purpose? Well, then that becomes a process that will require effort and repetition, as we said, and it's a process of exploration, exploration, and learning to know yourself, learning who am I, what did I come here to do, what is this all about, etc. And these are very valuable assets. Now we're going to cover in further videos other ways that you can develop certain faculties to develop your higher senses of discernment, and I'll give an overview of kind of what's available in that regard. So, the main nature of today's topic was just to cover that